You've been lied to about saving money. Right now, there's someone putting away $500 every month into their savings account. They feel responsible, smart, secure. But here's the brutal truth nobody wants to tell you. They're actually getting poorer every single day. While they're busy being responsible, inflation is silently eating away 3 to 4% of their money's value each year. That $10,000 they saved, in 10 years, it'll have the buying power of barely $7,000. They worked overtime for that money, skipped dinners out, said no to experiences. And for what? To watch it slowly evaporate. But here's what makes this a real tragedy. During that same decade, the S&P 500 averaged 10% annual returns. The wealthy understand something savers don't. Cash is trash. They don't save money, they deploy it. They buy assets that grow, appreciate, and multiply while they sleep. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why traditional saving is financial self-sabotage and what you should be doing instead. This might make you uncomfortable, but it could also change your financial future forever. If you're ready to stop wasting your hard-earned money, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's dive in. Look, I get it. You've been told your entire life that saving money is the responsible thing to do. Your parents told you, your teachers told you. Every financial guru on basic personal finance says the same thing. Pay yourself first. Put money aside, build that emergency fund, and save for a rainy day. And on the surface, this advice sounds completely reasonable. It sounds safe. It sounds smart. But here's the problem. It's advice from a different era, and following it blindly in today's economy is like bringing a knife to a gunfight. Let me paint you a picture of what's really happening. Imagine you're working hard at your job, putting in those extra hours, maybe even taking on a side hustle. You're disciplined. Every month you transfer money into your savings account. You watch that number grow, and it feels good. It feels like progress. You've got $5,000, then $10,000, then maybe even $20,000 sitting in that account. You look at it and think you're winning at this whole adulting thing. But you're not winning. You're losing, and you don't even realize it. Here's why. That money sitting in your savings account right now is earning you, maybe 0.5% interest if you're lucky? Some banks are giving you 0.1%. That's essentially nothing. Meanwhile, the cost of everything around you is going up. Your groceries cost more. Your rent or mortgage is higher. Gas prices fluctuate but trend upward. Healthcare costs are through the roof. Education is more expensive than ever. The purchasing power of every dollar you've saved is quietly, invisibly shrinking every single month. This isn't some conspiracy theory or fear-mongering. This is basic economics. The Federal Reserve has an inflation target of 2% per year. That's their goal. They want prices to go up by at least 2% annually, but in reality, we've seen inflation rates much higher than that in recent years. We've seen years where inflation hit 7, 8, even 9%, and even when it settles back down, it never goes back to zero. The damage is already done. The prices that went up don't come back down, they just stop rising as fast. So let's do some real math here. Let's say you saved $10,000 5 years ago, and you've just let it sit in a savings account earning minimal interest. Over those 5 years, with average inflation of around 4% per year, the real value of that money has decreased significantly. What cost $10,000 5 years ago now costs roughly $12,000. Your $10,000 can't buy what it used to buy. You didn't spend a penny, but you lost purchasing power equivalent to $2,000. You worked for that money, you sacrificed for it, and it's worth less now than when you earned it. Now here's where it gets even more frustrating. While your money was sitting there losing value, the stock market was doing its thing. Over the long term, the stock market has historically returned about 10% annually. That's not guaranteed year to year, obviously. Some years it goes down, some years it explodes upward. But over time, over decades, it averages around 10%. So that same $10,000, if you had invested it in a simple index fund tracking the S&P 500 5 years ago, would now be worth somewhere around $16,000, maybe more, depending on the exact timing. Do you see the tragedy here? By trying to be safe and responsible with your money, you cost yourself $6,000. That's not a small amount of money. For most people, that's months of savings. That's a vacation. That's a down payment on a car. That's freedom and opportunity that you no longer have because you chose the path that felt safe. But it gets worse, because this isn't just about what happened over the last 5 years. This is about what's happening right now, today, and what will continue to happen every single day you keep money sitting in cash. Every morning you wake up with money in a savings account, you're making the active choice to lose money. It's a slow leak. It's not dramatic. You don't see it happening. But it's as real as if someone was reaching into your wallet and taking a few dollars out every single day. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, but wait, I need my emergency fund. I need liquid cash I can access immediately if something goes wrong. And you're absolutely right. You do need an emergency fund. That's not what I'm arguing against. What I'm saying is that most people have way more sitting in cash than they actually need for emergencies, and even their emergency fund could be working harder for them. The standard advice is to have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved in an easily accessible account. That's reasonable. If you lose your job or have a medical emergency or your car breaks down, you need money you can access immediately without having to sell investments at potentially the wrong time. But here's the thing. How much is that really? For most people, 3 to 6 months of bare bones expenses is somewhere between $5,000 and $15,000. That's your emergency fund. That's your safety net. Everything beyond that, that's just money sitting around getting eaten by inflation for no good reason. And even that emergency fund doesn't have to sit in a traditional savings account earning nothing. There are high-yield savings accounts right now offering 4, 5, even close to 5.5% interest. That's not going to beat inflation by much, but it's significantly better than the 0.1% your regular bank is giving you. And there are money market funds and short-term treasury bonds that are even better and still extremely liquid. You can access that money within a day or two if you need it. For a true emergency, that's perfectly fine. You're not going to have an emergency where you need $10,000 within the next 60 seconds. But let's talk about what you should actually be doing with money beyond your emergency fund. This is where the conversation gets interesting, because this is where you stop being a saver and start being an investor. And I want to be really clear about something. Investing isn't just for rich people. Investing isn't some complicated thing that requires a finance degree or a fancy broker. Investing is simply putting your money into assets that grow in value over time, and it's the only way regular people build real wealth. The simplest and most proven way to do this is through index funds. An index fund is basically a collection of stocks that tracks a market index like the S&P 500, which represents the 500 largest companies in America. When you buy an index fund, you're buying a tiny piece of Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Nvidia, all the major companies that drive our economy. You're betting that over time, as these companies grow and innovate and make profits, the value of your investment will grow too. And historically, that bet has paid off incredibly well. Over the last 100 years, through world wars, recessions, depressions, pandemics, financial crises, and in every kind of chaos you can imagine, the stock market has trended upward. It's had bad years. It's had terrible years. There have been periods where investors lost half their money on paper. But if you stayed invested, if you didn't panic and sell, if you just held on and kept investing through the bad times, you came out ahead, way ahead. This is the difference between savers and wealth builders. Savers are terrified of losing money, so they keep it in cash where it's safe, not realizing they're guaranteeing a loss to inflation. Wealth builders understand that short-term volatility is the price you pay for long-term growth. They understand that the risk isn't in the market going down temporarily. Markets always recover. The real risk is in not being invested at all and watching your purchasing power erode year after year after year. Let me give you a concrete example that really drives this home. Let's say you're 30 years old right now and you have $20,000 saved up. You're trying to decide what to do with it. Option 1, keep it in a savings account earning basically nothing. Option 2, invest it in an index fund and don't touch it until you're 60. Let's run both scenarios. In scenario 1, your $20,000 just sits there for 30 years. With inflation averaging 3% per year, by the time you're 60, your $20,000 will have the purchasing power of about $8,000 in today's money. You didn't spend any of it, but you lost more than half its value. That's the tragedy of the saver. In scenario 2, you invest that $20,000 in an index fund averaging 10% annual returns. After 30 years, accounting for compound growth, that $20,000 becomes about $350,000. Even if we're conservative and assume only 8% returns to account for fees and lower market performance, you're still looking at around $200,000. The difference between these two scenarios is life-changing. It's the difference between struggling in retirement and living comfortably. It's the difference between financial stress and financial freedom. And here's the beautiful part about investing in index funds. You don't need to know anything about picking stocks or analyzing companies or reading financial statements. You're not trying to beat the market. You're just trying to match it. And matching the market over time makes you wealthier than probably 95% of the population. It's simple, it's passive, you set it up, you keep adding money when you can, and you let time do the work. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but what if I invest and the market crashes right away? What if I lose everything? And this is a legitimate concern, but it's based on a misunderstanding of how this works. First of all, you won't lose everything unless every major company in America goes to zero, which would mean our entire economy has collapsed, in which case your savings account isn't going to help you either. But more importantly, market crashes are temporary. Market growth is permanent. Look at every major crash in history. The dot-com bubble in 2000, the financial crisis in 2008, the COVID crash in 2020. Every single time people panicked. Every single time the news was full of doom and gloom. Every single time people said this time was different and the market might never recover. And every single time, not only did the market recover, it went on to reach new highs. The people who lost money were the ones who sold in fear. The people who made money were the ones who either held on or, better yet, bought more when everything was on sale. This is why time in the market is so much more important than timing the market. You're not trying to predict crashes or find the perfect moment to invest. You're investing consistently, over time, regardless of what the market is doing, because you understand that over decades, the trend is undeniably upward. This strategy, called dollar cost averaging, where you invest a set amount regularly, actually works in your favor during downturns because you're buying more shares when prices are lower. So here's what I want you to take away from this video. Saving money isn't bad. Having an emergency fund isn't bad. Being financially responsible isn't bad. What's bad is letting fear and outdated advice keep you from building real wealth. What is bad is working hard for your money and then letting it slowly evaporate in a savings account when you could be putting it to work for you. What's bad is reaching retirement age and realizing you wasted decades of potential growth because you were too afraid to invest. The wealthy don't save money, they invest it. They put their money into assets, stocks, real estate, businesses that appreciate over time. They understand that cash is a tool for transactions, not a place to store value. They keep what they need for immediate expenses and opportunities, and everything else goes into investments that grow. This is how generational wealth is built. This is how regular people become millionaires. Not by earning six-figure salaries, but by consistently investing modest amounts over long periods of time and letting compound growth do its magic. If you take one action after watching this video, let it be this. Open a brokerage account if you don't have one set up automatic investments into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund and commit to never touching that money until retirement. Start with whatever you can afford. $50 a month, $100 a month, whatever it is, just start. Because every month you wait is a month of potential growth you're giving up. Every year you keep excess cash sitting around is a year you're choosing to get poorer. The tragedy of the saver isn't that they're irresponsible with money. It's that they're so focused on protecting what they have that they never give themselves the chance to build something bigger. Don't be that person. Don't let fear of short-term volatility rob you of long-term wealth. Your future self will thank you for the decision you make today.